How will the Saints look next year from the top down? New Orleans football. St. Nicholas, some would say, here on a live stream. His live stream, we're reacting after the fact. We're going to talk about the Saints in the future tense, okay? Because the present tense of the Saints is misery, and the present tense of the Saints is sadness and negativity, and they have ruined my life. Multiple holidays, my bank account is absolutely in ruins because of this team. So we are assuming that Nicholas is going to be talking about next year. If it gets too much into the third string left guard, third string safety kind of talk, whatever it is, I will skip ahead in the video. It's a long video, 45 minutes and 48 seconds. As you all know, your boy right here is not afraid to pontificate, word of the day. So a 45-minute reaction video could easily turn into a 3 to 4 hour video. So I'll try and make this condensed for all of you. Let's go ahead and start the video, shall we? We shall.
What's up, y'all? Merry Christmas. Just
Merry Christmas,
getting the stream going, talking a little
Absolutely.
Saints, get a little cleanup going. We normally have a show on Monday, so just hitting the stream just to kind of fill in the gap a little bit of just not having it. So
yeah,
we're going to get into kind of the topic of the day. I asked on Twitter earlier. Make sure you guys are getting your questions in too, because I'm going to answer them throughout the whole entire show. But yeah, I kind of got a bunch of replies on Twitter, and
can't wait.
Kind of the question everybody is asking is, what does it look like from the top down next season? And look, I know that
I'll go first, not to interrupt. I'll go first. Top down, here's the deal. And I got asked this question a lot over the Christmas break. I was with family and friends, and everyone, when they had the opportunity to sit one-on-one with the superstar, one-on-one with the fastest rising channel in New Orleans sports media, they asked me, what's going on? What's it like? What are you hearing? What do you think? What all that. Here's the deal. I told them, I'll say the same thing. Allen's got to go. Carmichael's got to go. I think Loomis has a lifetime contract. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's too in deep. He may retire in a couple of years, but he's not getting fired. Okay, so the idea of like cleaning total house, the idea of Loomis gone, Allen gone, Carmichael going, that's not happening. So I'm going to say the same thing I've been saying for weeks, ladies and gentlemen. We need a new culture. We need a new vision. We need a new philosophy. We need new ideas all over the shop. That's what we need. Ben Johnson, Joe Brady, Eric Bieniemy, Ryan Flores, like these are guys, Jim Harbaugh, these are good coaches that are out there, coaches that I'm willing to take a shot on. If I had the pick of the litter, I would probably pick Joe Brady at this point, because I'm hearing Ben Johnson wants like $15 million a year. That would make him like the third highest paid coach in the NFL. I'm not ready to take that chance. But, and it doesn't have to be a head coach. If we go get Brian Flores as the head coach and Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator, that's perfect. I'm fine with that. Let's rock and roll. It doesn't have to be you get Joe Brady, he's the head coach, he's this and this, or Ben Johnson or whoever else. So that's how I would look. That's what I would do. That's what I'm hoping for. After that domino, we can kind of talk about other stuff. Carr will be there for one more year. It is what it is. And I'm not all out on Derek Carr. I'm not all out on that whole situation, but I'm willing to give him a chance. We're paying him. He's there. He's available. He's on the roster. He will be next year. So I'm willing to see what he can do with a Ben Johnson or a Eric Bieniemy or a Joe Brady or whoever it ends up being. I'm willing to see that. If he's terrible, who cares? We're cutting him anyways. Cutting him after next season, and then we can move forward. Draft-wise, Jaden Daniels isn't going to be there. He's going too high. We're going to be picking in the middle of the pack. I'm hoping for like a Jared Verse, Keon Coleman kind of situation from the Houdats. And you hate to say it, I hope when we do get a new staff, we just clean house. As far as the assistants, as far as everyone else, I want a new culture in New Orleans. I don't want any leftover people. I don't want any of that stuff. I don't want any Allen disciples. I don't want any Peyton disciples. I want a brand new vision, brand new culture, brand new idea in that building.
There was the report from Ian Rappaport about Dennis Allen essentially being safe going into next year. I think it's probably leaning that way, but I don't know that I necessarily buy that to be 100%. That's the direction they're going. It's probably the direction they're leaning, but I think the door is always wide open for change. I mean, look, if they come out here and they get blown out 2 games in a row and things look a certain way, your hands forced. So I don't think you can say
I agree. I mean, I saw the report and I couldn't believe it, because how can you say that after the Rams game and then you have 2 games left? More than likely, we're going to lose to Tampa Bay. We're 3-point dogs on the road. Like, we don't win these games. So if we get rolled by Tampa Bay, they clinch the division. Our season is done pretty much. We play the Falcons at home. There's no. That's a spot where we could absolutely lose these last 2 games. And then what? You, like Nick said, your hands are tied at that point. You lose those last 2 games, you have to start firing people. When we were in the conversation of winning 10 games, winning the division, doing all that stuff, it was like, okay, I can understand where if you win the division, you go over 10 wins, maybe have some playoff success, maybe then Allen could survive. But there is no way he'd survive losing to Tampa and Atlanta. I don't think he would even survive losing to Tampa. I mean, you're talking about 2 years in a row, losing the easiest division in the NFL, being under 500 with the easiest schedule in the NFL. I mean, it's just a horrible look. It's been a horrible look. There's nothing to hold on to. So I don't agree that he's safe either.
anything definitively right now about the direction of this team
Yeah.
going forward. I think the door's open to everything. I expect DA to be back next year, but I don't know that that's necessarily a given. And the reason I expect it is just because this team, and I know everybody hates it, and I said it on the last time we did this, it's annoying too. Like, you kind of just want things to go one direction or the other so that it's either good or it's bad, but they just kind of stay right there in the middle, fighting back, scoring points, not giving up, making sure they aren't quitting. And that kind of keeps everything afloat going forward. So, I think that's just probably how the season's going to end. I don't see it ending in a sense where it's so bad that they have to go one way. But look, this is not a good situation to be in. This is a team that did every single thing it could to make sure it won the NFC South this year. They got the most expensive quarterback they could get. They went out and they shored up the defensive line. They got guys healthy. They kept everything together. They restructured contracts. They stuck with what they had because they felt like they could get over the hump and get there this year. And Tampa Bay beats Jacksonville yesterday, and that pretty much closes the doors on winning this division. Now,
it's not even wins and losses. We always talk about how you can't be so results oriented. It's not that Tampa Bay beat Jacksonville, or it's not that the Saints lost to the Rams or whatever. It's the way that we're playing. It's the way that we are operating. I mean, this team, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting more negative. It's getting harder to watch. The fan base is more upset. Like we thought we were turning a corner, beating Tommy DeVito and Bryce Young. Well, we didn't, right? So I just don't know, unless Loomis is just total apathy, doesn't care at all, barely even watching the games, not interested. Unless that's the case, I don't see how he can see what's going on, hear the boos from the fans, hear how upset the fan base is, and be like, yeah, let's run it back. Like, anybody can see that a change has to be made.
Obviously, it's still open. The Saints went out and the Bucks lose out. The Saints get in. I don't think that's going to happen, considering the Bucks got the Panthers in the finale. And I don't think the Saints win next week in Tampa Bay. I don't see that going down that way either. So I think everything is settled on that front. And I think
it's a horrible spot too to play Atlanta. If we lose against Tampa Bay, our season's over. That's called a dream crusher in the gambling world. Atlanta, if they're playing with Taylor Heineke and they're playing the Saints in the Dome, the motivation is way lopsided, because the Saints are going to have their dreams crushed. They're going to be upset. Their season's over. Heineke's playing max motivated. Heineke's trying to play for a starting job or play for another, play for his career basically. So that's not a great spot either. And we saw what the Saints did last year in the last game of the season. So if we lose to Tampa, there's a good chance that that's a domino effect. We lose to Atlanta. Now imagine you go 2-4 in the division, getting swept by Atlanta, getting swept by Tampa. That is a tough look, and I just do not think the staff can survive it.
I think it looks really bad for them to be the team that tried to do every single thing it could to win it and to not win it. And I tweeted something yesterday. Let me pull this up, just kind of about how these games have started against teams with a winning record. And obviously a handful of these teams beat uh, the Saints to help them get to a winning record. There's a couple teams, one game over 500 or whatever, but the Saints have played 6 teams with the winning record this season. In the first half of those games, they've been outscored 109-54 and outgained 1,350 yards to 945 yards. That's just it just screams not being necessarily prepared in all those games.
They're those stats or whatever. The biggest stat is that we haven't scored a touchdown on the opening possession. We are not prepared. We are, and that's really kind of where I'm so lost on this coaching staff thing, because Carmichael and Allen have shown you that they can't do the jobs. They cannot do the jobs that they're in. And it's not me guessing. It's not like this is my take or this is my opinion. Pete Carmichael, the offensive coordinator's job is to prepare a game plan to have success, especially on those opening drives and scripted possessions. We are failing at that. Where have the Saints been at their worst? Arguably after the bye week. Why? Because we just can't take advantage of more prep time, because we can't prep. We can't scheme. You could give Pete Carmichael the end of time. You could give him eternity. He's not going to be able to prep a game. And that's what I was saying with the Rams thing. It's like short rest really doesn't matter as far as the game plan, because we cannot do anything with extra time. So you might as well just try and catch the other team on a short game plan. So he's shown it time and time again. The Panthers game, Nick's talking about how we start. The Panthers game. Panthers are terrible. Panthers are ass. We were 1 for 8 in the 8 first possessions of the game. We scored once. Luckily, they're the Panthers, so we weren't down 30-7. It was the exact same thing from Carolina to the Rams. The Rams, we were 1 for 8 on the first 8 possessions. Panthers, we were 1 for 8. Big difference. One has Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Sean McVay, and the other one has Bryce Young and a bunch of misfits. Like that. Like the Saints aren't doing anything different from team to team, whether they're a winning record team or a losing record team or a rookie quarterback or a veteran quarterback. The Saints are the same. They are the most consistently inconsistent, consistently terrible team I've seen in a long time, as far as like offensive game playing, offensive scheme and stuff like that. It's not indicative, or it's not like we're playing a good defense, thus the Saints offense looks however. It doesn't matter who we play. We do the same thing. We don't start fast. We don't score early. We can't score. We might come back at the end, but it's just more of the same every single week. And I have absolutely no reason to believe that it's going to change next year, because it never changed this year, and it didn't change this year from last year.
To come out flat like that, and then you're fighting back in the second half, playing against prevent defense and stuff like that. So it's a tough look. It just screams to being unprepared to start these games. And those are the things that I would be looking at, is I'm kind of evaluating things a little bit and trying to figure out, why is that happening? Is it a coaching issue? Is it players not being prepared? Is it execution? Is it all of them? And if it is all of them, where does that fall? Like ultimately everything always flows back to the boss, no matter what. So that kind of feels like, it does have to fall on that. So they're going to have interesting decisions to make. I just don't think it's going to bottom out enough to where they do the full reset. I think they're going to end up looking at this thing and they're going to see it, and they're going to try to find a way to keep it together, maybe make some changes with personnel, make changes on the coaching staff. I think you're going to see, if DA returns, I think you're going to see a handful of guys that are on the team now that are kind of, stalwarts or whatever, however you want to describe it, foundational pieces. I think a handful of those guys aren't going to be here next year.
Yeah, I would assume Michael Thomas is not going to be here next year. I would assume Cam Jordan's probably not going to be here next year. Cam, I love Cam, one of my favorite Saints ever, top 3 favorite Saint ever. His production just isn't there. And I think if you're Allen, if you are returning, you can't just keep rolling these same guys over just because they're franchise guys. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if Thomas is gone. I think Thomas is almost guaranteed to be gone. I wouldn't be surprised if Cam Jordan's gone. As far as the defense, as far as like stalwart, however Nick is saying it, those are 2 immediate guys that I would think are probably out of here.
Sure. I think there's going to be some major changes regardless, and it's going to be fascinating to kind of see how it goes. But, people have been asking in these questions too, how do they sell that? How do they sell it to the fan base if they decide to run it back? And
good luck. Good question.
That's going to be the most interesting thing in the world to me, is trying to see how you do go about telling people, hey, be excited, buy these tickets. We're going to do the same thing. Like, I don't
That's why I don't think they can bring him back. Because if they say we're going to bring back Dennis Allen, let's just say Dennis Allen, we're going to bring back Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, same players. Because you're not bringing back Dennis and then all of a sudden, trading up and getting Caleb Williams. Like you're going to have Derek Carr. He's Dennis Allen's guy. So you're locked and loaded for a repeat of this season. And I mean, if you wanted to be a Saints season ticket holder, if that's the case, they're going to be cheap. It'll be the time to jump in. Because how do you sell that? How do you sell the same thing we just saw this year and last year? We've done this for 2 years. It's not like, oh, well, this is the first year, we'll see what happens. I mean, this is a mirror image of the first year. Nothing's changed. Nothing's going to change, guys. Nothing's going to change. Why would Dennis Allen now change 80 games into his head coaching career? He is who he is. Pete Carmichael has had this position for 20 years. He is who he is. This isn't a guy like Joe Brady or Ben Johnson, where they're young. They're just kind of starting this whole, as a coordinator or a play caller or whatever. Pete Carmichael's been in this building for a long time. He ain't changing. Dennis Allen, almost 100 games as a head coach, has given you this record. He ain't changing. So if they do come back, nothing's going to change. And as a fan, that's brutal. That is horrible as a fan to try and get excited for something like that.
I don't know how you sell that. And I know that they're sitting there saying, hey, look, if we stick with these people and we win some games, that's how we sell it. And ultimately that is the truth. You sell it by winning. So if they tear it down, they get a new coach. Over. You're selling some tickets at the beginning of the season and you start losing. You aren't selling tickets at the end of the season, and it's the same thing. So ultimately selling it to people, you got to win. You got to win games. So if they run this back, you got to win the games. And if they do run it back, I think next year, that's where it's going to be fascinating. How long do you stick with it? Like, how long do you go again, seeing, what it is and if it's going to be okay and does it work? If you're 1-3, do you make a move at 1-3 next year?
Why would you do that? But that's what I'm saying. Like, why would you, if it's a brand new head coach, first time head coach, then yeah, I could understand, like, hey, let's give him a little bit longer and see if he can get things figured out through the offseason, the beginning of the year. You have a tremendous amount of evidence for Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael. So if Dennis Allen starts 2-5 next year, why would you all of a sudden be like, okay, I've seen enough? Like, haven't you already seen enough? If they bring them back, to me, there's no way they're making a change in the middle of the season. Because it was as bad as it could get right now. Like, it's as bad right now. And they're saying, like, Nick's saying, you got to win games. There's only 2 left. And 1 we're supposed to lose on the road. So there isn't any more games to be won. It's not even possible anymore. It's not possible. So I don't know. I just the only reason I could see them coming back is if Loomis just doesn't care. If it's just full, like, who cares? Let it play out. It is what it is. And if that's the case, like, the franchise is in a worse spot than I even thought.
These are the big questions that I think we're going to see. But I mean, look, again, I don't see anything being set totally in stone. I expect it to be that they stick with these guys. So I think it's going to be kind of a fascinating thing to see. I mean, I think you got to show something down the stretch. And I think that
stretch is already here.
You got to keep competitive, and if you aren't competitive, then you do see the changes. I'm reading through the questions here, and they're all about it's Christmas and you're talking to me about Derek Carr. God bless you. I know, man. I got to find better things to do with my time, but what can I say? This is how I have fun. Did the family thing all day, did the movie thing all day. It was cool, but this is how I kick it. This is how I have fun, man. Like, 2 days without work, make it to the end of the day. We went almost 48 hours, so that's about the best I can do on that. But this is what we do, man. This is what we built. It's built on the love. You guys coming back and forth. You guys pay for the website. We do the work. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. So I like doing these streams, though. It's something that I want to keep doing. I think we're gonna try to build a little something around them, add it to.
In my illustrious career as a content creator, my favorite thing was live streaming. I live streamed daily for like 6-ish hours a day. for almost like 2 years straight. I love streamers on Twitch. Love stream it or love doing it. Streaming, I think, is the best medium because it's live. So that, like, it takes the editing out, it takes the trickery out. Like, I think YouTube, a lot of times you can trick people by editing, or so many takes or so many whatever. A person can come off a different way on YouTube because they can really edit down to make themselves look good. On a live stream, there is no editing. It's just you. It's just the audience. And I also like the engagement. I like going down to YouTube comments and replying to y'all. On Twitch or on live streams, it's in real time. You're reading the chat. It's almost like a conversation. So I love live streaming. So I think that's the way to go for a lot of content creators. And for what New Orleans football does, I think streaming would be really beneficial for them as well.
To the regular repertoire. And just keep building this thing out and giving you guys more and more content. You can pick and choose what you listen to, what you read, all that stuff. But that's kind of the plan. We got big plans for NOF though coming into the new year. So it's going to be cool to kind of see some of that stuff come to fruition. New studio's almost done. Hopefully we're in there by beginning of February. I think the main show will be hosted there. These streams, we'll keep doing them from this studio. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool though. We're still doing some stuff over here. How do they rebuild with so much debt money? Because, I mean, look, here's the thing with the debt money.
Said it a million times. Money don't matter. Breaking news, Russell Wilson was just benched by the Broncos. Breaking news, he's going to be cut by the Broncos. They're going to have like $50 million of dead money in 2025. They're going to have like $40 million of dead money next year. And guess what? The Denver Broncos are still going to go sign players. They're still going to pay Sean Payton. They're still going to play games on Sunday. There is never, ever in the history of the NFL, since the salary cap happened, there's never been a team not allowed to play on Sunday because of their money situations. There's never been a team not able to fill a roster because of their money situations. It just doesn't matter. It matters to a certain extent. Obviously you can't just go sign everyone you want, but as long as you're kind of sort of playing within the rules of the game, I've always said two things that fans overvalue: salary cap, contracts, dead money, the financials, and draft picks. Those are the two things that people constantly talk about that are way overvalued.
You have $10 million in dead money. You just can restructure another $10 million and push it forward. And then it's kind of like it's not there. So
yeah,
like, let's put it this way. If you have $20 on a credit card and you have 4 credit cards, and every month you just charge off that $20 to a different credit card, you don't ever really have to pay the $20. I mean, like, there are service charges and whatever, like there are fees, there's stuff that comes up, but essentially you can keep moving the same $20 forward over and over and over and over, and you're fine. The problem is that when you're doing that, you're moving money forward, you get stuck with older players, and that number ends up ballooning. So it's never just the same $20. It's 20, 20, 20, 20. And it's like, well, you know what? You can push 30. So if we were pushing 20, we can now push 30. And now you're pushing 40. And you kind of get like stuck with these older players. And again, the Saints look at the cap as a whole. They don't look at it as individual pieces. And I think that's where a lot of people get their head hurt trying to think about it, is that they're looking at it and they're like, no, they can't do this. They can't do this because this guy would cost that. And they're just like, we don't care. It's just, it's a whole. Like, we're looking at the cap as a whole, not as individual parts. They don't look at it as like a sunk cost on one guy. They just kind of look at it, how do we manage this as a holistic thing? And they're willing to move money forward all the time. So there is dead money on the books, but they're kicking money forward. So it's not like they're taking, $10 million out of 100 million. They're taking, they're pushing another 10 forward. So in essence, that 10 million doesn't really matter. Like I said, though, the problem is that it balloons, and then COVID hit and it just balloons so much that it becomes this like unmanageable thing. And then their plan got derailed because they had to push so much money forward to get there during the COVID season. And that's how you start making some bad decisions, and you start making, and the bad decisions are amplified. Like the thing with
here's the problem with way bigger problem than the money. The problem with the Saints is that they haven't developed players. Like they haven't found new players, got new players, developed new players. If you look at the Rams, everyone was furious with the Rams with the Stafford trade and the Jalen Ramsey trade because they were like they're mortgaging the future. You know, like they're trading all these draft picks and they're mortgaging the future to win this one Super Bowl. And look what they did since then. They go find Puka Nacua in the 5th round. They get Kyron Williams. Like you can, if you develop players and you find the diamonds in the rough and you have successful draft picks and things like that, like it doesn't matter what you're doing as far as like draft picks and money and all that stuff. You just got to be able to develop the players, find the players. The Saints have not done that, right? Like you look at who the Saints have brought in, you look at who they've developed, who they haven't developed, however you want to phrase it. They haven't, since the draft class that people say is the best draft class or one of the best draft classes ever. But since they brought in the Michael Thomases and the Marshawn Lattimore's and the Alvin Kamara, since all that time, they haven't done anything. They've just whiffed on offensive linemen and whiffed on defensive linemen, and that's it. You know, like the Rams, if they would have whiffed on Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams and whoever else, then yeah, you could look at the Super Bowl thing like, man, you really mortgage the future. The Rams did what they did with their draft picks, won their Super Bowl, and now, right now, they looks like they're ready to compete again. So, you know, I mean, it's just different strokes for different teams, but it's all about that front office management. And with the Saints, the front office management just seems so apathetic. Like, we're not taking chances with the players we're drafting. We're not taking chances and trying to go get the diamonds in the rough, the Brock Purdy's or the Puka Nacuas or the Kyron Williams or the whoever. You know, we're not doing that. We seemingly get stuck taking a bunch of C players and then not developing them, and then they just eventually become C-level starters, and we're just full of a bunch of C-level players who either end up getting cut or, you know, stick around forever, and we figure out they can't play like half the offensive line. But, you know, when you see like Trey Hendrickson, like imagine if the Saints had him. Imagine how much of an impact and a difference it would be if we had him. But the Saints just seem to mismanage that chess game. You know, they mismanaged that part of the game. And you have to wonder how much was the good roster management during the Peyton years. How much of that was Peyton? You know, how much of that was him versus Loomis? Because if it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's like, yeah, it was actually all Peyton. Peyton was the one that could find the players and put them into the positions and do the things. And if that's the case, that makes perfect sense. And Loomis is just kind of lost.
Their cap management is that when you're doing it like this, you can't miss on your draft picks. And the problem is they're missing on their draft picks and they've missed on some of their signings as well. And when you're doing both those things,
I really am the best. I really am the best.
Things very quickly, that's how you get into trouble, because you got to be cap efficient. You got to hit on your draft picks to do the cap like this. And when you aren't, now all of a sudden, instead of, you know, filling that hole at defensive end with a guy on a rookie contract, you're looking at it like, oh, damn, we got to go out and sign somebody. And now you have to sign somebody. And now you have Cam's contract on the books. And now you have a wasted draft pick. And now you've made mistakes. And now there's no way out of it, because the money to get out of it, you've spent to retain your players by kicking the money forward. So now you have a two-pronged issue here, and you just keep ballooning this issue more and more, and it becomes harder and harder to see a way to get out of it. And that's where you get into trouble. Like, if you're managing the cap the way they are, you can't have your first round picks over the last several years be Marcus Davenport,
Peyton Turner,
Trevor Penning.
Yeah.
Brzez's fine. Olave was a good pick, you know, but then even go through the seconds. Foskey didn't hit there. Alontae Taylor, I think he's gonna have a good career. I mean, look, I know last week he got sat down, but I think he's gonna end up having a good career. I think he's a good player.
But this is a good example too, where Brzez, okay, you know, like Alontae Taylor, okay. These are just B- level players. Like we're not finding the Puka Nacuas. We're not finding the guys who are coming in and just going nuts. You know, the guys that are dominating the NFL. I mean, Puka Nacua is having the best rookie season since Randy Moss. You know, so we're gonna skip ahead. Well, we'll let him keep going a little bit here.
I think he just needed, you know, kind of one of the moments to where it's like, all right, like time to lock in.
Yeah, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit to the next question, but Yeah, me and Nick are seeing this the same way. Like it's not an issue. The bigger issue is definitely hitting on draft picks, developing players, finding the diamonds in a rough. Like the Rams have done that fantastically. We just have not.
Need to draft a legit guy in the draft.
I don't think there is a legit guy in the draft. I think it's more. I'm not sure how the Saints are missing, but they are missing a lot. You know, like there is no legit guy in the draft. There is no one's gonna. There's a reason Puka Nacua went to the 5th round. There's a reason Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft. It's up to the team to draft that person with a plan to develop that person. So, like if you go back, would anyone say Brock Purdy was a legit guy in the draft? Would anyone, if you go back, would anyone say, even Cooper Kupp, would you say Cooper Kupp was a legit guy in the draft? No. You know, like, I mean, Justin Jefferson was passed on for who, like Jalen Reagor? Was it Jalen Reagor who went before? Someone double check that. You know, so it's like there is never a legit guy. Even the legit guys get passed on. The Baltimore Ravens took Hunter Henry, I believe. Was it Hunter Henry? I'm starting to double guess myself now. No, who was the other tight end? It wasn't Hunter Henry. He has like red hair, long red hair. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. But the Ravens took him, a tight end, over Lamar Jackson. So even Lamar Jackson wasn't a legit guy in the draft. You know, Patrick Mahomes went 10th. So there was no such thing as a legit guy. It's all about the team getting the player, developing the player, doing, you know, putting him in the system, identifying the skill set that fits the system. The Saints just seemingly can't do that.
I'll give you that. I mean, look, I think Foskey's a little bit unfair to throw in there as like an uncertain guy. Like the thing with him is that he had college production. Looking up his college stats real quick, just so I get him right. But I think it was like 22 sacks, right? Like during his college career over the last 2 years or something like that. Like he had legit production. I mean, I didn't think he'd come in and be great right away. He looked kind of raw. What a lot off of athleticism. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's fair to call him like a unsure thing. Like Davenport and Turner are definitely within the same thing. The thing is, though, is I think that prototype's going to change. I think that prototype's going to change at defensive end. Like Ryan Nielsen wanted these like huge dudes at defensive end, like just the biggest people in the world at defensive end, and you didn't get a lot of sack production out of them. Davenport was up and down, but like those were the guys he wanted at that position, and it was hard to argue with it. I mean, they had pretty good results overall on the defensive line. Nobody ran on him. You got some decent sack production out of Davenport. You got good sack production out of Cam. Onyemata had a couple good years. But I think that prototype is going to change because he's not here anymore. I think they're okay with having smaller guys, more attacking guys, and you need that in today's NFL. Like you just have more.
But it's crazy they had the guy in Hendrickson and let him go. Like it's crazy, you know. So, like I said, it's about developing the chess pieces and then utilizing the chess pieces is a big part of it.
People in the backfield that can run now. Like you have to have that type of player in today's NFL. So I do agree though. Like these unknown guys, but like that's the problem with picking at the end of the first round of the draft and you need a defensive end. You're either drafting a Foskey type that you know doesn't have a very high ceiling, or you're drafting kind of an unknown with a high ceiling and you're trying to coach him up a little bit. That's the tough. Preserve the culture and try.
All right, is Loomis in any hot water at all, or is he too close to miss Gale? So, like I said, I think Loomis has a lifetime contract. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's too in with the Bensons, too in with the ownership. So I don't think there's any way Loomis would get canned.
Is Loomis in any hot water at all, or is he too close to miss Gale? I don't think Mickey. Look, honestly, I don't think Mickey should be in hot water at this point. I think that's premature. Like,
I agree. Honestly, you know. We just came off of 15 years of sustained, relevant success, chasing titles, chasing NFC Championship games. We are in an enormous transitionary period with Allen and losing Peyton, losing Breeze, aging players, all that stuff. Loomis missed on this Allen Carmichael hire from within thing. Question is now, can he, as I famously said, is he the right guy to go find the right guy? He has to go find the next Sean Payton. Obviously, it's not going to be a Sean Payton clone, but he needs to find the next guy who's going to be here for 10 plus years, who's going to build a culture, build a foundation, do whatever. That is Loomis's next step. Now, if Loomis keeps pushing that off to let Allen and Carmichael try and tank the franchise, then he may be in hot water. But as of right now, I do agree. I think it's a little premature to really be looking at Loomis, moving off of him as well.
He led an extremely fruitful era. I understand the thinking of keeping everybody around and trying to preserve the culture and trying to see if you had it. The thing is
you didn't have it.
Once you know it doesn't work, it's what you do next. And I think he
Yes.
should be judged on what he does next. I think you have to admit if things aren't working and it's blatantly clear things aren't working at the end of the season, if that's how it looks, and you don't make a change, then I think you put yourself in the hot seat because you're tying
Exactly
yourself to it. And
Exactly
you're saying
what
it
I
has
said.
to be better. And
Yeah.
it's going to get better if you're sticking with it. But I think ultimately, look, I understand the thought process behind keeping with this. Like, I don't think it's the most egregious thing in the world. And at the time, it made sense. It added up to me. I listened to what everybody said. I looked at
It did. The Allen thing, the Carmichael thing was worse to me than the Allen thing, because I understand, like, at that time, thinking Dennis Allen's one of the elite defensive coordinators in the NFL. So let's try and keep that. Let's try and keep the defense good. Let's try and keep the voice and the culture and all that stuff. The problem was you lost the two most influential people in the franchise history at the same time, pretty much, Peyton and Brees, both from the offensive side of the ball. And you did nothing to fix that. You gave it to Pete Carmichael. And you have to know internally if he can do it or not. We all, from what it sounds like, Carmichael was very vocal and saying, like, I don't want to be the offensive coordinator. This isn't for me. And he was kind of had to be talked into doing it. So that they should have known then. They should have known right then, like, we probably need to go find a guy. We probably need to go get an offensive coordinator. We probably need to make that move. Or keep Allen as the DC and go get Doug Peterson or whoever at the time to be the new voice and coach and all that stuff, kind of smooth over the gap that Peyton and Brees left. That's been the problem the last 2 years, is that we have these huge holes that we have yet to fill.
it. It's like, all right, all these guys can coach well. Every single time I would tweet something about, like, when DA was the DC, like, oh man, like someone's gonna come get him. Like after that Tampa thing, like, oh, like DA is gonna get head coaching opportunities. Whole fan base would be like, no, shut up. Don't say it. Don't say it. Like, so I mean, look, I think it's a little bit, but whatever. It doesn't even matter. I just don't think it's egregious. But once you do something and you know it's wrong, you have to fix the mistake
100%.
if it is a mistake.
100%.
So I think
100%. I don't blame Loomis for the Allen head coaching, giving him a chance. I do blame him if after these last 2 seasons, if he doesn't say, okay, enough's enough. That's when I'll blame him.
That's what you get judged on from this. I think he should get a chance to kind of fix it a little bit, see where it goes from there, and then you make the decision on that. So
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I don't think it's that he's too close to mid-scale or anything like that. I just think it's a little bit premature. But look, anybody that's frustrated with anybody on the staff, I totally get it. It's totally warranted.
Yeah.
And Ram's future isn't looking well with his knees. Yep.
Yeah, offensive line is a huge concern. But this first sentence, it says offensive O-line is a huge concern. That could also say quarterback is a huge concern. Offensive coordinator is a huge concern. Rush defense is a huge concern. Wide receivers is a huge concern. Not being able to run the ball is a huge concern. Pass rush is a huge concern. Like, the Saints have a lot of problems right now. It's not just the offensive line. The offensive line is a problem, but it's just as much of a problem as the rest. And Ramchek's future isn't looking well with his knees. Yeah, apparently Ryan Ramchek's knee is really busted up. And apparently it's like a degenerative knee situation where it's never going to get better. But again, you're going to have to go find good players, whether that's through the draft or whether that's through free agency or whatever. You're going to have to find a good offensive line play. You're going to have to find good defensive ends. You're going to have to find good wide receivers. You're going to find good, we just need to find good players. We don't have a roster full of good players right now. That is become apparent. So, yeah, I mean, you can point at the offensive line, but you can also point at literally every position on the field.
Real scary. Real scary. The depth chart for the offensive line is It's scary, man. It really is. Like, you kinda look just across the board, and again, another position where they have put so many
Yeah,
resources into this, and the fact that they have not made the resources work is crazy.
yeah.
Ramcheck, like you said,
But see, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you whiff once, okay, happens. Everyone, it is what it is. If you whiff like 5 times, it's like, okay, we need to see how we're evaluating these players. If you whiff on 5 different draft picks at the same position, pretty much, there has to be a conversation of how are we drafting our offensive linemen? What are we looking at? What metrics are we checking? Because maybe it's just wrong, right? If you and the Saints, I think it probably should take a look in the mirror as far as their player development or player scouting or whatever of who they're drafting. If you draft 5 quarterbacks who can't play, you got to have a conversation of what in the world are we doing? Saints got to be there for the defensive line draft picks we've had, for the offensive line draft picks we had. We definitely need to re-up what we're doing.
said the knees are starting to go a little bit. I think it's a concern. I think it's a big concern.
Yeah,
I don't think he's like at the end right now, but I think the end's on the horizon. I mean, the knees are degenerative. I think we first mentioned these a couple of years ago, and yeah, look, they aren't getting
I mean, guys, come on, come on,
better. It's getting worse. He's missing time. It's something that he's gonna, I bet he goes off, tries to figure something out this offseason, and then
retires.
kind of see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a concern, legit, like a big one. Cole
Next
Thomas
question.
gone.
Yes, he's gone.
I think if I'm Mike Thomas, I'm looking at my options.
Yeah, why would Michael Thomas want to be here? And I'll tell you this too. Would it shock anybody if Michael Thomas ended up in Kansas City? And would it shock anybody if Michael Thomas all of a sudden was a all-pro wide receiver with Patrick Mahomes? There's a lot of good teams who need good wide receivers. A lot of good teams. Even whatever teams. I think Michael Thomas is a good player. Michael Thomas gets a lot of flack, I guess. He is productive. The injury situation is what it is. But you pair up Michael Thomas with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, pretty scary. Pretty scary. You go get him, like I said, put him on Kansas City, pretty scary. You go get him, put him on the Chargers to replace Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Quentin Johnson, or whatever the rookie's name is. All of a sudden, Michael Thomas could have a couple more years left. I think Thomas is good. I think he's real good. So, question is the same with him. Like, can he stay on the field? But I think as far as New Orleans, like pushing the contracts back and doing all that stuff, I think the time is over now, and it's just mutually will part ways.
I mean, let me get up some stats here. Like, legit, what's the point of coming back here
Yeah,
if you're him?
there is
Unless
no point.
it's just out of some like straight up loyalty to the city and the fan base,
Which I don't think there is.
I can't say.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
And I don't think he'd be mad at me for saying this. Like, I know Mike feels a certain type of way about the city and the fans, and he knows how much football means to everybody here. And, I don't think that's an issue there. Like, he knows what football means to the city. He knows what the Saints mean to the city. He likes that atmosphere. He
Yeah.
feels like this is his home. I think there's a big part of him that wants to come back. But if
I don't think he wants to come back to this situation. I don't think he wants to come back to Derek Carr, Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, the same stuff. And we saw from his Twitter, we saw how he was, vocally, he seemed frustrated too. So why would he want to come back to that at this part of his career? I hope he goes to Kansas City. I hope he lights it up with Patrick Mahomes. I don't want the guy just to sit in New Orleans just to be a Saint. If I wouldn't blame him at all for seeing what's going on here. And if it is Dennis Allen and Derek Carr next year, I wouldn't blame him at all for going somewhere. And I wouldn't hold it against him.
if I were Mike Thomas, I would be looking at the situation and say, like, what is it? What does that have for me at this point in my career
Yeah.
that's going to help me get back to where I want to be?
Yeah.
And I don't see the answers there. And I'm about to tell you why. Trying to get my database up here. I just don't think that this offense show everybody, what I can do. And I think Mike was starting to do that, but like it wasn't conducive to like his game. Let's see here. Attempts. So they like the Saints have run a decent amount of hitches this year. I mean, that's a route that Mike always dominated on. Crossing routes, they've connected on 20 the whole entire year. The whole entire
Pathetic.
year. 20 crossing
Sad.
routes the whole entire year.
Unbelievable.
Let me get up.
Trying to skip ahead a little bit here.
On recently, but I don't think they were hitting many of them with Mike. Let's see what Mike's routes were this year, the targets. And go there and see if there's a better way to fit into an offense, like where they can just kind of fill them in. Like him doing underneath stuff like in Kansas City is just.
Am I the best or what? Guys, I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? How good am I? How many times this video have I said something? Boom. 2 minutes later, you hear the same thing. Like no notes, no production, nothing. Just me, the brain, the voice. Telling y'all, we're on a different level.
Something that just seems like such an obvious fit. Like I would try to go there, try to do that. They need it, and then you could just fill in, and Mahomes gets you the ball, and you get your handful of targets, and you eat, and you help the offense, and you show everybody what you can do again. Like that makes more sense to me than coming here and kind of going through the struggle in the same thing. Where, and look, even that stuff over the middle, like the timing just like isn't there. So there's some production, but it's not like Drew Brees, like because there's no defender there. And now,
I think I was waiting for this question to pop up. I think we should look in the draft to replace Mike Thomas' production. Keon Coleman, I love it. I think he'd be amazing. I'm all about drafting for what's to come. If we're looking at bringing in an offensive guy, replacing Derek Carr in the future, whether it's next year or the year after or whatever, fill the roster. And yeah, you do need to fill Michael Thomas's production. You do need to boost up the wide receiver room. We're rolling out Marquez Callaway, sure hands, Keith Kirkwood, Rashid Shaheed, Leon Bowden, we need some depth at wide receiver. So if Malik Neighbors or Keon Coleman are there, get them. I'm totally fine with that. I would love that. I think that would be great, because then if you go get your quarterback, if we end up drafting, I'm just making stuff up, 2 years from now we get Riley Leonard or Quinn Ewers, and they're walking into Keon Coleman and Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, all of a sudden it's like, okay, that's pretty all right. A young quarterback can survive with those playmakers. It's much easier to be good than if Quinn Ewers is walking into Lynn Bowden, Marquez Callaway, and Keith Kirkwood.
You're let out, you're getting yards after catch. Like it's just kind of like it's not as smooth. I would try to go somewhere else for him. Yeah, they gotta look in the draft somewhere. You got to get a big bodied receiver somehow. So you got to find a way to make it work and get it done. Shout out to my guy Matt Bowers. I see you in here, man. No offense, but like some of you guys are like argue about middle tier quarterback. Like spend your time on something way more productive, man. It's perfect running game. Like if you get everything perfect around, I'm sure you can succeed. But like that's a very tough margin. And the problem is that the Saints, I think, have so many needs right now that getting to that margin.
So the question is like, how do we go about Carr? I think he needs almost everything to be perfect for things to work, kind of like Jimmy G needed. All right, look, the last year in Las Vegas, Carr ends up getting benched. I understand it was a contract issue, but Carr was no great shakes. He had the NFL's leading running back and Devontae Adams at wide receiver who had 1,500 yards. So it's not him having everything perfect isn't even a recipe for success with Carr. And I made basically an hour-long video talking about this, but Derek Carr is a average quarterback. That's it. That's the name of the game. He's a mid-tier average quarterback. Ceiling, like 12th best quarterback. Average-wise, probably like the 15th to 17th best quarterback. At the lower tier, he's probably like low 20s. 23rd, 24th, something like that. He's just a middle-of-the-road guy. Some people got to be. I want Derek Carr to succeed more than anybody, because that means the Saints succeed. I predicted the Saints were going to win like 12 games this year. I had high hopes for Derek Carr. Okay. But I also understood that he could be just Andy Dalton. And we made plenty of videos saying that. And that came to fruition. It's crazy. I've been called a Carr apologist. I've been called a Carr hater all within the last 2 weeks. And I'm really neither. I'm not blind to how bad Derek Carr's been, but I also don't think the unsuccessful season is all his fault. The bottom of the line is like a quarterback, especially a franchise quarterback, especially a $150 million quarterback. It's just like a CEO. If you have a business and your business is failing or unsuccessful, or however you want to phrase it, disappointing, the CEO is going to be looked at. Is it all the CEO's fault? Probably not. But the CEO can't say, well, why are you blaming it on me? Why don't you blame it on the receptionist? It's like, it just comes with the territory. I'm not saying the receptionist isn't doing a bad job, but I'm not saying the janitorial staff or the salespeople or the ads team or the valet in the parking lot I'm not saying those people are perfect. Like, I'm not saying Derek Carr is the only problem with the Saints, but he has been a problem this year. He has not been good this year. He has been disappointing this year. Does that mean he can't turn it around? No. But it's just facts at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going into week 17. I'm not jumping the gun here. I'm not saying anything unfair. It just is what it is. He's been disappointing. So, saying he's an average quarterback at this point in his career, I think is pretty much accurate. Just an average guy. It's an average quarterback in a bad system with bad coaches. That is not a recipe for success.
Filling it all in, it's almost impossible. Like, if Ramchek's knee goes just a little bit more and it's an issue next year, and then you don't have Penning, you need 2 tackles. You need a guard. You need another wide receiver, probably, because Mike's going to leave. You need better tight ends. Like, the tight ends, I think some of them that do the dirty work have produced. The ones that are counted on to receive have not done what they're supposed to do. Your running game isn't what it was supposed to be. You invested so much money into your running game to be something that it just simply isn't. Jamal has not been what he was supposed to be. Kendra has not been.
Yeah, a good example, Jamal Williams. I would say Jamal Williams is an average to below average running back in the NFL. It is what it is. He led the NFL in touchdowns last season. Do I think he should be getting 20 carries a game? Do I think he's a elite level running back or even an above average running back? No. It is what it is. You have to have mid-tier players. You have to have below average players. That's just how the NFL is. So, has Jamal Williams been disappointing? Yes. Does that mean he'll be bad next year? Does that mean he's bad overall? No. But he has been disappointing this season. Again, we're 17 weeks in. We've seen enough. We've seen the whole thing. I had high hopes for Jamal Williams, for sure. Thought the Saints' depth was pretty strong, and we needed backup running back. We needed the Mark Ingram replacement kind of situation. Thought we had it with Jamal Williams. Turns out he really didn't fit. And if you look back now, it is easy to see, why would he fit? We have Taysom. We already have what he does. He's just kind of log jamming the whole situation. So, it's just messy all over the place.
Ben, what he was supposed to be. Alvin has been a beast, but he can't do it by himself. You don't have the blocking for the running game. So it's just kind of, you need everything kind of on offense. Like, your offense is not good enough. Like, at this point, it would be easier to have a quarterback that covers the margin than to fill the margin for the quarterback. And that's a tough place to be. I just don't think they have the resources to go out and kind of build this around. And if they try, is it worth it? Like, you're going to go out and you can create the cap room and everything, but is it worth it to go out and just kind of max out everything on the credit cards again to try to make it work with Derek Carr in this division? Like,
if you had different coaches, if we had Sean McVay, I trust Sean McVay to get the most out of the roster. So yeah, go max it out, whatever. But with Dennis Allen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you go get. It's not going to work. With Pete Carmichael, it doesn't matter. So you got to get the coach first and then make those roster decisions.
I don't know. Like, I don't know what the right answer is. If they win 10 games next year, I'm not going to be like, man, that wasn't worth it. Like, it would be worth it, but that has to be the standard. And if you're going to do it, you got to get to the 10 wins. And I don't know if they can. So it's it's just a tough place to be. Like, you got to build the team a certain type of way, and I don't know that you can get there with what they have. So they got to draft. They have to draft
Yeah,
everyone. They have to
they
draft
got to
well.
rebuild.
They got to.
They got to rebuild a foundation. I'm not saying rebuild is like tanking or anything, but they have to rebuild a foundation for this team. This team does not have a foundation, doesn't have a culture and identity, any of that stuff. We've got to build, literally, guys, every facet of the game. New offensive line, new playmakers, new defensive line, new second, like everything. Is there anything besides Kamara that you're like, we're good there? We're good. We're good with Alvin Kamara. But are we good anywhere else? Any other position on the field? Kicker, punter, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, secondary, like anything. I guess you could say like Demario Davis, we're good there. Everything else is kind of like, I don't know, kind of shaky. We probably need more. It's like, it's just a franchise, like I said, in a transitionary period for sure.
And, I think it's just down there to allow with the communication and all that stuff. He likes to be able to talk to the quarterbacks. The other coaches can talk to him. It's just kind of more conducive for that atmosphere.
Has Pete Carmichael always coached from the field this year instead of press box? He could coach from Mars. It doesn't matter. He could coach from, the parking lot. Doesn't matter. He could be under center. Doesn't matter. The guy is completely clueless. Locked into bad contracts, not much draft capital, poor coaching, looking like it stays. Thoughts?
Defense slipped, and it was just like, ooh, like what is the future hold? And yeah. I mean, I think yeah, it's not the greatest situation.
Yeah, it's not at all.
Is Cam Jordan time for a change? I think Cam's still a good player to have around. He's good against the run. The pass rush obviously isn't kind of where you want it to be. He's got an injury right now. The thing is Cam isn't going anywhere. I think the contract kind of keeps him here.
If that's the case, then we probably need to have somebody who we can rotate with Cam. Like rotate with Cam, because the production, like I said, just isn't there.
Things got a little bit messy in the preseason, and things unraveled a little bit for him. So, yeah, it was.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Looks like the next couple questions are not. Think AK sticks around. I think Kamara does, at least for another year. Do you think y'all will cover the Pelicans and our LSU as much as the Saints? I'll mention that, or at least from this channel, and then we'll kind of end the video. But this channel, I don't want to put us in a box of like the NFL or whatever. We just cover sports. We obviously cover the Saints super closely. The Pelicans, I do want to bring Pelicans more into this coverage. Been a season ticket holder of the Pelicans for 3 years now. Go to a lot of the games, all that stuff. But truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, I think we offer the highest level quality with the NFL. I believe when we talk about the NFL, when we talk about football, when we talk about that, I think you're getting the absolute highest quality takes, opinions, conversation, out of the box thinking, whatever. I think is top notch, as good as you'll find literally anywhere else. That's how I feel. Is it true? Is it an ego thing? Say what you want. But there's a reason that when we watch videos, we're saying things way ahead of everyone else. There's a reason we watch videos, we don't need notes. There's a reason we don't do research. There's a reason we just know it. Because it's what I follow. It's what I know the best. That's why this channel is so NFL based. Because I think we're offering the highest level stuff. We could cover the Pelicans, but I'm not going to sit here and say I can offer the same kind of NBA coverage as Bill Simmons or an NBA guru, Jonathan Von Tobel from VSiN. I'm not as well versed there. So that's why we keep it so NFL centric here, is that I want to give y'all the highest quality videos, the highest quality conversations. And it's just what I know best. So we will sprinkle in some Pelican stuff. We will sprinkle in other sports and other things. As you know, obviously the Saints have 2 weeks left. The Saints have 2 weeks left of the season, so we will be covering other things. We're going to cover, you know, the college football playoffs. We'll cover the NFL playoffs. You know, all that stuff. But that's just a little note for here. But man, over an hour long video. It might be the longest video I've put on the channel. So hope you enjoyed it. You know, again, taking it live. You know, I wouldn't mind doing a Q&A myself. So maybe we'll try and set up some kind of Q&A system to do a Q&A video style, kind of like this. But instead of reacting to another Q&A, it'll be me doing the Q&A. So that may be something we'll check out in the future. If you made it to the end of the video, get down there, comment, let me know you made it to the end. That'd be unbelievable to listen to this for over an hour. Unbelievable. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you in the next video.